early holiday travel. The powerful system bringing heavy rain and major flooding across the Northeast and New England. Strong winds downing trees, damaging homes. First responders using rafts for water rescues. Multiple deaths reported. Power knocked out to hundreds of thousands. And just 1 week before Christmas, thousands of flights canceled or delayed. We're tracking it all. Also tonight, the new hostage video released by Hamas as the U.S. turns up the pressure on Israel. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in Tel Aviv, what he said about protecting civilians as Gaza's reported death toll nears 20,000. The major shift from Pope Francis on same-sex couples. What the Vatican announced today. The governor of Texas signing a controversial new border bill, setting the stage for a major showdown with the federal government. The verdict in the trial of Marvel star Jonathan Majors, charged with assaulting his former girlfriend. New developments in the investigation into lead-tainted applesauce that sickened dozens of children. Was it done on purpose? And Harry Smith on the tradition dating back more than a century in a place they call the Christmas City.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome, everyone. Much of the East Coast recovering tonight from a massive storm that brought heavy rain, coastal flooding, and high winds from Florida to Maine, killing at least 2 people and spawning a tornado in South Carolina over the weekend. Utility crews in New England tonight still trying to restore electricity after powerful wind gusts brought down trees. 7 states experienced wind gusts in excess of 60 miles per hour. The winds forced the FAA to declare a ground stop at Boston's Logan Airport that has since been lifted. The storm barreled out of Florida over the weekend and brought at least 2 inches of rain to every coastal state from Florida northward. Parts of the Northeast receiving at least 5 inches of rain, many areas still under flood alerts as we come on the air tonight. In a moment, we'll have the latest on flight disruptions in this very busy travel week. But first, the latest on the storm from Emily Aketa.
With whipping winds and torrential rain, a monster storm is leaving behind a mess for millions tonight after barreling up the East Coast. Wind gusts topping 60 miles an hour in at least 7 states today, downing trees onto homes and cars and wiping out power to nearly 800,000 at one point.
It was raining too hard and the wind was blowing and everything was so crazy here.
Parts of New York and New Jersey declaring emergencies after fast-rising floodwaters stranded drivers and caught families by surprise. First responders jumping into action.
You can't even make out the roadway here in Bayshore, New York, where floodwaters are now creeping towards people's homes.
I didn't think it was going to get this bad.
In Vermont, fire officials evacuated a village inundated by a dangerous combination of rain and snowmelt.
What we are experiencing today is dangerous, and there will be damages.
It's the same system that sent a car hydroplaning into another, killing 2 people in Durham, and spawned a tornado outside of Myrtle Beach over the weekend. Nearby, a 35,000-pound semi-truck flipped.
Never had a case where I ever thought that I'd flip over.
While in the Great Lakes region, snow squalls led to this massive pileup. A deadly winter wall-up hampering the start of the holiday week.
And Emily, you're learning more about the storm's deadly toll.
Lester, that's right. Authorities confirming a tree fell on a trailer in Massachusetts today, killing an 89-year-old man inside. And in Maine, we're learning a 40-year-old man died while trying to clear off debris from his roof. Tonight, officials across the region are urging people to exercise caution as floodwaters like these linger even hours since the storm has passed. Lester?
All right, Emily Aketa tonight, thank you. And this severe weather also caused problems at some major airports just ahead of the Christmas travel rush. While Southwest Airlines has agreed to pay a huge fine after its holiday meltdown of last year. Tom Costello is at Reagan National Airport tonight. Tom, where do things stand?
Yeah, right now, FlightAware is reporting more than 4,000 flight delays nationwide, more than 550 cancellations. That number will grow through the night. All of this as millions of Americans are preparing to kickstart what the airlines say will be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, record for holiday travel. In the And the radar crosshairs today, some of the nation's busiest airports. Boston Logan, hardest hit, with 20% of flights canceled following FAA ground stops and delays. New York JFK, LaGuardia, Chicago O'Hare, and Atlanta feeling the ripple effect of the rain and wind.
I have to fly, so just do what I have to do to get home.
Instead of going from Charlotte, North Carolina to Florida, we're going to Dallas, Texas, and then to Florida.
Today's storm, a stress test before a record 39 million people start flying Wednesday through January 2nd. And coming the same day, Southwest Airlines agreed to pay the biggest government fine ever, $140 million, 30 times bigger than previous airline delay fines, for its massive meltdown last Christmas that started with a snowstorm in Denver, then crippled Southwest operations nationwide. 17,000 flights canceled, 2 million passengers affected, many stranded for days, unable to reach Southwest agents, get quick refunds, or lost luggage. $90 million of that mega fine will fund vouchers for future passengers affected by future flight disruptions.
It's not just about holding Southwest accountable, but really shaping better choices across the industry for the future so that something like this can't happen again.
Today, Southwest said we learned from the event with subsequent investment, realizing a vast improvement toward our resiliency, new de-icing and computer systems. Southwest CEO promises there will be no repeat of the Christmas 2022 debacle.
We've invested in trucks and new pads and staffing in technology, and we are ready for winter.
The nation's biggest low-cost carrier now paying the price for promising a schedule it couldn't fly. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
In the Middle East, new talks are underway aimed at securing another ceasefire to try and get Hamas to release more of its hostages as anger grows over the death of 3 hostages accidentally killed by Israeli troops. Richard Engel now with late details.
Hamas released a video tonight showing 3 elderly male hostages, made under duress, but proof they're still alive. In the past, Hamas has freed hostages shown in similar videos. A U.S. official tells NBC News CIA Director Bill Burns is now in talks with the head of the Israeli Mossad and senior Qatari officials to reach a new ceasefire and potentially free more hostages. The Israeli government is under pressure to negotiate as details emerge about the 3 Israeli hostages who were mistakenly killed by Israeli troops last week. The Israeli military saying the hostages were shot even though they smeared SOS with old food and help 3 hostages in Hebrew on white banners and were carrying a white flag. Today in Israel, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said U.S. support for Israel's right to defend itself against Hamas is ironclad, although protecting civilians is a moral duty and strategic imperative. And he vowed to protect freedom of navigation in the Red Sea after another attack against commercial ships today by Iranian-backed militants in Yemen.
We're taking action to build an international coalition to address this threat.
We joined an Israeli naval patrol today off the coast of Gaza. Commanders warned us that Hamas's allies are trying to impose a naval blockade on Israel and risk escalating this conflict.
This is spreading fast. And this is a danger for the free economy, for the global community. Very sad.
While in Gaza, misery is everywhere. Human Rights Watch today accused Israel of using starvation as a weapon of war. As aid trucks arrive, they're mobbed. Often the aid trucks can't even stop, dropping boxes as they go out of fear they'll be overrun. Bottles of fresh water are fallen upon. Total desperation. And tonight, a negotiator involved in those ceasefire talks tells us they're also trying to prevent a military escalation in the Red Sea. Lester?
All right, Richard, thank you. And for the families of those hostages accidentally killed by Israeli troops, there is more than anguish, there is outrage too. Here's Hallie Jackson.
At the second day of the Shiva for Alon Shamriz, hug after hug.
He was serving in the army in special forces. Alon is a brave guy.
Avi Shamriz believes his son plotted an escape from Hamas tunnels along with 2 other hostages.
If you see the sign, all is his handwriting.
The sign that says SOS?
Yes,
that's his writing?
Yes. The army did not act as an army. They act like murderers. They just shoot to kill.
It's not just grief.
I'm really angry. I asked the government to stop the shooting, and look what's happened.
What is your message to the government?
You murdered my son twice. You let the Hamas take my son on October 7th, and you killed my son on December 14th. They are not our leaders. They're thinking only on themselves. They are not thinking about the hostages.
Alon Shamriz was shot by his own military at the same time as Yotam Hayim and Summer Talalka. And at Summer's family home, his mother, Layla, welcomes visitors. Including an Israeli politician. We can only ask for your forgiveness, he says. Layla says they're all three heroes. They went out, escaped, they did all the work, just waiting for you to come get them. She tells him, I will not forgive anyone. You did not accept his condolences. Why? Because these words came late, she says. Later, describing how she keeps playing in her head her son's final moments. Their call for help, the white flag, this is what I keep seeing, she tells us. I am hurting. For these families, pain and rage. And for this country, a reckoning. Hallie Jackson, NBC News, Israel.
At the Vatican, an important shift by Pope Francis in recognizing same-sex couples. Molly Hunter reports.
Tonight, a radical step of inclusion. Pope Francis giving his permission for Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. A change of perception, if not doctrine, and reflective of Francis's own more pastoral vision.
Pope Francis deals in big picture, broad brush. He sends a broad message.
The new declaration is a landmark step signaling the Church's welcoming of the LGBTQ community. But the document signed by Pope Francis stresses that the blessing of same-sex couples is not the same as a marriage sacrament in the eyes of the Church.
I'm sure many people won't be satisfied with this. They would think that it's anything short of marriage, anything short of equality is offensive. And on the other hand, some people will see this as an incremental step.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops said in a statement, each of us needs God's healing love and mercy in our lives.
It's an overdue decision, but I'm glad that it's been made. I think that's a great step forward. I think that's wonderful news, to be honest.
Long overdue. You know, if Jesus said love was love, then love is love, isn't it?
The door now open for so many who have not always felt welcome, thanks to an aging pope still sparking controversial discussions.
I think it will be taken as a step toward eventually allowing marriage. That's not what the Vatican is saying, but that's surely the way it will be perceived by many people.
Molly Hunter, NBC News.
And just breaking tonight, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill permitting state law enforcement to arrest migrants entering this country illegally and give judges the power to order them to leave the U.S. Abbott accuses President Biden of deliberate inaction amid record illegal border crossings. The new law is expected to spark legal challenges. In 60 seconds, the verdict in the assault trial of actor Jonathan Majors, plus the new details about that toxic applesauce and if it was intentionally contaminated. Now, with the verdict in the trial of Marvel star Jonathan Majors, the actor found guilty of misdemeanor assault and harassment for attacking his ex-girlfriend in March. After the verdict, a source with direct knowledge says Majors was dropped by Marvel Studios. He faces up to a year in jail when he is sentenced February 6th. Also tonight, new developments in the investigation into lead-tainted applesauce that has sickened dozens of children after the FDA said it may have been intentional. Here's Stephanie Gosk.
3 Wanna-Banna-Made applesauce pouches, easy snacks for parents with small children, were recalled this fall because of lead contamination. Tonight, the FDA says it knows where the lead came from. Cinnamon supplied by the company Negasmart in Ecuador. Samples showing extremely high levels of lead contamination. The FDA suspects the supplier may have been motivated by money, possibly using dyes that contain lead or adding lead to make the cinnamon heavier. Some advocacy groups calling for more to be done to ensure food safety. How do we keep this from happening in the future?
This never should have happened. We should have a system of protections in place at the federal level that require companies to test for lead and other contaminants.
At least 65 parents tell the FDA their children have elevated lead exposure from the applesauce. According to incident reports obtained by NBC News, parents described symptoms possibly related to the lead, including gastrointestinal issues and anemia. The FDA says it has not yet verified all of the reports. Long-term lead exposure can damage the brain and nervous system, according to the CDC. The Callahans say they regularly gave their 1-year-old the since recalled applesauce.
Since he's been diagnosed with lead poisoning, we've found out that Rudy has a little bit of a speech delay.
Today, Wanna-Banna and the manufacturer Astrofood announced they will reimburse up to $150 in healthcare costs, and they are working closely with the FDA during the voluntary recall. Tonight, the applesauce lead mystery is closer to being solved, while raising larger concerns about food safety. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
And coming up, how all-important young voters are feeling about the presidential election in our new series, The Deciders. It's next. Just 4 weeks until the 2024 primary season kicks off, and in one key battleground, President Biden is getting big warning signs from a group that helped him win in 2020. Shaquille Brewster spoke to some young voters in Wisconsin.
I voted for Biden, and I told my friends to as well.
Evan McKenzie is a Starbucks worker and union organizer in Madison, Wisconsin, who cast his very first presidential ballot for Joe Biden.
Do you plan on voting for him this time around?
No, not anymore.
The 23-year-old was part of the surge in young voters in the liberal Dane County that helped Biden flip the battleground state 3 years ago. He's now angry at the president.
You could tell his administration were doing really great work. But I think after October 7th, the question became a matter of human rights.
Republican presidential candidates have also vocally supported Israel's campaign against Hamas, but it's President Biden's young progressive base that's been increasingly sympathetic to Palestinians.
Did all of you vote for Biden in 2020?
Yeah.
Yep.
Supporting Mr. Biden is a conversation, sometimes a debate, that this group of Wisconsin friends say they are now having regularly.
He has the largest infrastructure bill since Eisenhower. I mean, that's a huge thing.
Not enthused. I'd say overall I feel very pragmatic and strategic about it.
In 2020, I looked at Biden like a used car. Like, it will disappoint me. It's not going to have leather seats. It's not going to have all the stuff that I want. But I mean, hopefully it'll get me from point A to point B. And I think he did that.
An easy choice for some.
What's the best argument that you have for young voters to support Joe Biden?
The other guy is way worse.
It's that simple.
I think it is.
Young voters who can tip the balance in 2024 already weighing their options. Shaquille Brewster, NBC News, Madison, Wisconsin.
Up next for us tonight, the small town that's big on Christmas. Harry Smith with a light show for the ages.